All right, it's October 10th, and we've got a great show lined up today. I don't think Rob can join us. He's in the Netherlands and Belgium doing all kinds of stuff. I think he's at a conference. He travels, so I don't have to. So thank you, Rob, for doing that. Another very productive week where the beginning of the week is completely blurred, and I can't. I know I put a lot of stuff out earlier in the week, but I can't remember what it was this week or last week or where the different projects are aligning. But I'll give you guys a bit of an overview of some UI related work that I've been working on. Everyone's been complaining that I do too much CLI and I'm catering to geeks. Yes, I'm catering to myself. Just a reminder, everything that I generally build is built for me. And so I don't really, I probably spend more time thinking how others could potentially use it. So I did a little bit of that this week, a little bit of empathy, a little design thinking, if you will. Um, so we'll dig into that. And there's some new algorithms that I've been playing with, and we'll explore something called a reasoning bank, which is a new paper that came out from Google DeepMind earlier this week that looks at sort of implementing a kind of reasoning structure within the memory structure of language models. And it's really a kind of interesting approach, and it integrates really easily with things like Claude Code and Claude Flow and other memory-based systems. So we'll dig into that a little bit as well. I see we got Brad. Brad, how's it going? Yeah.
Things are going well. Yeah, did want me to provide an update a little bit later on, or
Sure. It sounds like you've just created a segue. So what's
okay.
happening?
Not sure if stop me, but we're working really hard on the website right now. We've got things going. Still have some people with legacy issues with payments. We're correcting all that. Apologize if there's any delays or stuff like that, but it's all corrected in the new system. So we're getting through it. Whole bunch of volunteers. Sorry if it's taking so long, if you have issues, but we're almost done. There's things are coming in just a little bit here. But going into the positive, the system, the new community site, go to agentics.org, click register, and we're building out a lot to do with the different the different global chapters. We've got all kinds of them going on. We've got a bunch of different activity, 15 or so different committees if you want to get involved. And one of our big pushes is on the learning side and the courses with certification. I'm not going to say too much about certification, but the good news is we will have at least a format for Ruve to do voiceover and other people to do voiceovers, an hour-long certification program ready within a week and a half. We have a hard deadline to make sure that we hit that, and it's looking good. So anyone out there going, hey, I want to get some kind of certification, it's coming, and we're working really hard to get it done.
Nice. And just as an FYI, it was me that broke the Agentics website earlier this week. I created a infinite loop in the DNS. So essentially, I pointed the triple A record, which uses IPv6, and I didn't update the A record, which I mistakenly thought that everyone could use IPv6, but apparently only I use IPv6. So I fixed it. That was on me. It's a classic works for me moment where, I never thought to check the old school IP address. And apparently half the world still uses IPv4. So anyone that was using IPv4, which is basically a bunch of European countries, as far as I can tell, the site stopped working. Anyway, watch watch for that. And anyway, weird issue there. So we actually did the Toronto event earlier this week as well, which was kind of fun. We had a great turnout. I think we had 200 people registered, and we had it's hard to tell exactly. I tried to figure it out on the Luma site. I think somewhere around 60 or 70 people were there. It's a pretty big venue, so it's hard to actually tell, but it was a good vibe. And we changed it up a little bit this time. It was basically like a live vibe coding session. And we built and we created in a kind of live studio audience. And I think the feedback was really good. We did a unpanel style discussion where I invited some people on stage and we just kind of riffed on different concepts and ideas. So it was really good. And we had a few other events all over the globe too. It's been a busy week for events. So Nick, you were at one last night in Ottawa, if I right?
Yeah, it went great. It was hosted at Hive, a new incubator that's just opened up, and it was like pristine facility. Like, it's just amazing place for startups to get in there, or just people that have existing businesses. But he has like recording studios. He's got like a kitchen there where he serves lunch at the lunch hour for people that are participating. Some private offices, but really nice facility and a great host. Like, so it was just a great event. There was a couple of, a dozen people showed up, so it was a really good event, especially, get the shovel in the ground. And there's a lot of people that said, tell me when the next one's coming. I'll come and attend. So it's great to see that one get going.
Yeah, and getting going, and one of the things that I think we've discovered is just doing it repeatedly, and over time you kind of grow a community. Our global community on Luma now is close to 3,000, and it just doing it every month sort of makes a big difference for us. So even if your first event isn't 200 people registered, I don't think it really makes particularly any difference. As long as they're willing to do it more than once, I think is the key. And we've had a few other events. Anyone else want to talk about any events that they did other parts of the world? This is a moment to tell us what you did or where you were. There was is there a San Diego chapter? There should be a San Diego chapter. We could have a nice little surfboard on the front of that. If you're interested in creating these chapters, just reach out. We're been fortunate where we just kind of, as long as there's someone willing to be kind of the local organizer, we've done really well. And again, just pop a note in here, reach out to us, and we'll help make it happen. And generally speaking, putting it on Luma just seems to get people at the event. And if you have a previous community, it's also kind of useful. But even if you don't, it seems to work quite well. What else? What else we got going on here? So, Jed, what are you up to?
I think we'll hold that until the lightning talks segment, but it
Oh,
definitely brings a new twist to an old programming trick.
okay. So we are looking for people who want to present. So if you're interested in presenting, let me know in the chat here. We've got some time today because we don't really have a well-structured plan today, I guess, other than if you want to show, this is your opportunity for a bit of an open mic approach. Otherwise, I've got plenty to show, and I'm happy to show you what I've been building. All right. Any other comments before we dig in? I see Alex Alex DeBold's on the call. I saw your post the other day. You did a big launch this week, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Yeah. Tell us about your launch.
So I had demoed a couple of months ago the design portal, and
Hmm.
it became a beast because it basically allows any designer to upload either an FBA, like a 3D model of eyewear, and actually go through the entire production process um, digitally, like a digital pipeline. And the thing that was really complicated in terms of coding all this agentically is that because it's intellectual property and because you have individual brands, I actually built a system where you, just like in GitHub, where you have teams and roles and scopes and public and private repositories, that whole kind of infrastructure is actually deployed into this project. And by the time I was done, I was using Claude Flow to run over 1,500 tests, persona-based tests for each of the individual projects. Impossible to do this otherwise. It's kind of crazy. And then I got a weird bug with Vite where it was using the wrong version. It took me a day and a half to fix it. I was almost going to like post in the forums, but I got it. So I'll share a link. It's going to be design.virai.ai, and we're going to be publishing that. And hot on the heels of that, I'm going to be releasing the Commerce Studio, which I will kind of share more information about later. But yeah, big project. There's no way without agentic coding that I could have, written and tested, 1,400 different flows between commenting, adding, removing, inviting, deleting. It just speaks to the power of like agentic coding.
Hmm. Alex, you gotta get some glasses. You can't work in the glass space and not without your sort of prop or
Yeah,
like
it's
it.
true.
I get my son was telling me the other day, all the kids in his grade are wearing glasses now with that, but they don't need them. What's going on?
Yeah.
But
It's the blue light blocking, and I was in
yes, blue
Paris.
light, exactly.
Yeah, yeah, I was in Paris 2 weeks ago for Silmo, SILMO, where there were over 15,000 attendees and hundreds of individual manufacturers. And the same way we do code, where we look at like the back end, the front end, and components, you literally had like people who sell you the plastics, people who make the lenses, people who make the machines, the finished vendors, and the whole entire process. So it's kind of interesting to like be in the physical real world, like going between the different vendors and seeing how they fit into like this stack that you've been coding that's basically a parallel process but digital to their manufacturing process.
I'm not gonna lie, those new Meta display glasses that they've been sort of promoting that aren't out yet look really interesting to me. I had the first generation of the Meta glasses. They kind of sucked. And then like 6 months later they came out with the second generation and I was kind of jaded. I'm like, I'm not gonna buy another $500 pair of glasses 6 months every 6 months. But the new version looks really interesting. It's got this kind of embedded light display technology where you can kind of get an overlay and it can zoom in. You can use your fingers to take pictures by clipping together. Kind of cool, kind of
Right.
cool. Now the drawback is Meta's going to take all my personal memories and create a digital version of me and sell it to some government somewhere. But other than that, it looks cool.
They were there, but I didn't get a chance to try them.
Yeah, they're and the Wayfarers, right? They're a cool style. Like I think these are kind of Wayfarer style.
Mm.
And yeah, I don't know if they have the blue block in. I guess you could probably get the lenses custom in those, but.
Yeah.
All right. What else we got here? I'm just going through the list of the participants here. I see Braun. Hey, Braun, Braun's always got something interesting to tell us. Hopefully he's around. If not, we'll come back to him. All right, I'm gonna jump in and give you guys a little demo of some things. And before I do, again, if anybody else has something they want to show or they want to tell or even just have your minute of random thoughts, I don't care. Let me know. You can pop up, put your hand up. Um, let's and happy to go there. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to attempt in the best I can to at least start with something that isn't crazy esoteric and beyond most people's comprehension today with user experience. So again, everybody tells me that all the systems that I've been building are way too sort of, out there and you have to be like a programmer or whatever to use them. So I took some time this week using Lovable, which I love. You guys probably know that by now. And we had an early relationship with Lovable. They were on the AI Hackerspace when there was just two guys in Stockholm. So they've come a long way since there. And then obviously fastest growing startup, I think, of all time. So I hear. So anyway, lose Lovable. I'm going to show you a couple things. I'm going to show you how I built it in Lovable, but I'm also going to show you some of the ideas of this A pathfinding algorithm that allows for sort of self-determination of research. So this can be used for a variety of purposes, but the easiest purpose was just showing how to do research. So in this case, I made it easy. So Lovable also has free Google Gemini currently, which is awesome because it doesn't cost me anything to crank out these apps. So if you want to go, it's a little beta like everything I build, but if you want to check out goal.roov.io, you can go and play with it while I go through here. But a couple things. So I'm going to generate a technical sort of research objective. So this is making a request to Google Gemini based on some information that I passed to it, and it kind of randomly creates really interesting research objectives, things that are obviously interesting to me probably. But every time it's something different. And you can see here, I'll show you a little idea of how it works underneath. So when you click that button, it optimizes a series of parameters. So in this case, you can see research guidance, you can see its architecture, performance, limitations, and trade-offs. I can put in like a specification. Let's do spec. And that as there, I can say don't include a certain algorithm, or maybe I'll say don't, no, I'll put Python. So in this case, it won't mention Python, although it might actually encourage it. Now I can define things like the level of depth it does. So this will auto spawn sort of subagents and things like that. So because I clicked that previous one, it set up some of the settings here. You can choose the perspective. Now, a lot of these things are customizable, and I'll show you an agent-focused example here in a minute. But these basically give the sort of counter perspective, timeframes, things like that. The goal orientation in terms of enabling cost optimization. Is it open? Is it closed? Is it focused? In this case, it's focused. Parallel execution, multiple agents, all that kind of stuff. And what's cool about this, here's the prompt. You can see that it wrote it based on the selection. But you can take this and you can embed this in your website. So I built this in a way that basically takes exactly what you see on this site, but you can customize it. So rather than calling it goal-oriented action planning, we can call it AI Hackerspace Live. And maybe I'll add myself a little icon here. And what we got here, we'll add I don't know, we'll add this little icon here, poo icon, and my company will call it agentix.org. And a really cool demo. I don't know. And now you can see here, I can generate the code. And basically what this is it's just a bit of JavaScript that renders. So I built the application in Node.js in Lovable. You can see here it's in Lovable. It's I guess here we go. And then I brought it into my GitHub to do sort of the magic. But I made it look and work using Lovable. We'll get into that in a second. And then I compiled it in a way that allows others to put it on their website. So now if I click generate a research report, we'll see here that it goes through the process of what I call the GOAP. It's a strange word, I might add, but basically it's self-determining things like the goal and the state and information that needs to be gathered, and then it verifies that using grounding and encryption and all the demos I've given you over the last couple months. And then you see here now it's doing the sort of goal analysis. So we can, unlike the traditional implementation of Claude or Claude Flow that flickers and you can't see what's happening, this allows you to kind of gain introspection into the process as it happens, which makes it a lot easier, especially if you're doing coding or things that might run over a while. So this is actually going to be a long running process because I've actually chosen a pretty deep kind of concept to explore. So there's going to be multiple parts to it. You can see I'm on step 1 of 6 essentially. Now, while that's working, because this seems to be taking a while, I'm gonna jump over here and I'm gonna show you the coding agent. So similarly, the coding agent allows you to define different agents. I'm using the Claude Flow agent, so you can see different architecture, backend swarm coordinators. You can see the command structures. These are all similar command structures you'd see in Claude Flow directly. Now I've got this little dice icon, so I can just spin the dice and see what it'll create me because I can't be bothered to type it. Develop a high performance, robust, scalable backend service in Python. Let's do another one. I don't want to do Python. All right. And this is a CI/CD pipeline for microservice application. No, got to get more creative than that. I kind of like that. Or develop a high performance Python script. I'm just going to change that to Rust. Nothing against Python. All right. And then I can choose different optimization strategies. So these are basically I can optimize the script. So let's say I want to optimize it for architecture. I'll select that. And you can see it'll take the original input and then it'll rewrite it yet again and optimize it further. Now I can have advanced settings here as well. This allows me to define all the various parts of the swarm and deployment, similar to what I was showing you on the other screen. So I might do it for development. And then it changes the settings. I can define how many agents, the distribution strategies, how many agents I can run within, and different other settings in terms of how it discovers its sort of optimal solution. I've broken this down into 2 parts. One is a kind of discovery, so it's the spec, the PRD, the sort of, the initial research phase. That's important. So I can define different algorithms for that. I can define the heuristics on how it discovers and how it looks at the different sort of functions within the agentic algorithm itself. Cost calculations, not that important because I'm currently making it free. And then there's some more optimization strategies. And then you see here the execution, how it will execute in parallel or in hybrid. I'm going to do sequential because it's an easy demo. And I can choose the models. So again, I can choose, based on the options available in the agentic flow. This is built on agentic flow. So it basically orchestrates the Claude code style agents using the Claude agent SDK. So I'm going to save that for a moment. I'm going to start this. We'll go, I should have went Betty Crocker on this, but we can see here it's setting up the assessment, setting up the sort of state for what it needs to find. It's defined sort of different requirements, and we can see it starting to operate. I'm going to jump back to this other one. So this one's still running. So these are long running processes. So we can see here the first state here was a goal analysis. And we can see different parts of what it discovered. Then it went into state assessment. So it's looking at different parts of the state of the sort of industry and different sort of groundings. Then we went here to it scrolled me down. Let's go back up. Then it did a sort of dynamic web search based on the first couple steps. So each of these steps leads to the next. It's kind of like a much more intelligent version of like a ChatGPT deep reasoning or a perplexity kind of approach. This is actually built using the Google Gemini API and grounding. So it's again fast and cheap. Well, in this case, I think it's free. So, and then it tries to find documents. I can integrate secondary document sources with this, that kind of thing. Then we've got a knowledge synthesis. This brings it kind of all together. So remember, each system is planning and replanning and understanding and creating a kind of loop between a kind of logic. Logic defines the overall structure, a kind of reasoning component, trying to attempt to understand why. And then the last step is a comprehension. So not just why, but is this true? Is this real? Does the system truly understand what it's researching? You can see this could run for 20 minutes or longer. I'm going to let that keep running here. Now we're going to go back to the agent deployment here. And so in this case, I deployed this as an agent. So we can see the tasks. So we've got different tasks in the sort of order of the tasks. So looks like we've done the first couple tasks here. There's still some other tasks left to do. We can see the research breakdown, how it sort of what it found, that kind of thing. We can take a look here at the execution. This is basically how the system is actually executing. It's got a nice little, little interface here. We can, I don't think that's draggable, but whatever. Or we can just see a timeline approach. And agent activity, this sort of gives you a sort of introspection of what the agents are doing. I don't know if that's scrollable or not. And here's the architect. So we've got a researcher, we got architect, we got tester, we got DevOps. And then we got the event timeline. So this allows us, it's basically kind of like looking at Claude Code a little bit. It just tells you what's doing and how it did it and some other details. Some quality related, some logs. This is more of a command line sort of UI. It's lots of details here. So we go back to the dashboard. And again, we can always take a look at what it's thinking and how it's thinking about it. We can scroll down a little further. Here's the implementation strategy. Here's the testing strategy. I'm going fast. I'm going in parallel. I'm showing two different versions of the same app. This one, I need to fix a couple bugs, but whatever. It should work enough for you guys to try it. Here's the view detailed report. The detail report, similar to that tab you saw earlier, but this is just giving you more details of what it's doing and how it's doing it. More goal assessments. Here are the settings it used, so it kind of reminds you. If you click this, it'll generate a Spark specification. Takes a few minutes, and I separate that because it takes a while, and I didn't want to burn too many credits before I realized it was free. So you can go, and if you want to revise it, you can hit the submit revision request. In this case, I can say I don't like the fact it's using Python or something, and you might want to use different libraries. You just pop it in here. All right, so I'm happy with it. I'm going to click the next stage. Now we move to the sort of coding and development stage. Whoops, I went a little too far. Now, again, we can see each of the substructures here. So it's initializing the environment. So what's happening now is essentially it's spinning up the agents in the sandboxes, creating some files, the initial sort of installation, in this case of Vite.js. It's implementing sort of authentication modules. Some of this, because this part is less developed. I haven't fully finished it. So some of this is probably a little bit mocked at this point. This Go style one though is completely finished, and you could actually add the code to your website if you wanted to. So you go in here, you can see the key findings, and I did some crazy, I'm not even sure what the heck it was looking up, but some deep tech there. And I can see the full report. This gives me an overview of all the various findings. Yeah, I can see, what it found and how it found it, all that kind of stuff. And this is all open, so you'll be able to customize any way you want. So if you want to use this for doing some other form of research, this is built for research that requires anti-hallucination. You can see here in this particular example, I've got 99 different citations. So it's grounding all the information it finds in much the same way like I guess a ChatGPT deep research or Gemini deep research would work, but this is using a more adaptive approach to the actual reasoning that underpins it. When you use like a Google Gemini and their deep research or the some of these the way that it thinks is kind of obscured a little bit. It gives you a decent result, but you can't really massage the way in which it gives you that result. What this does, it gives you, as I showed you earlier, you've got all the parameters to basically define how it thinks and how it needs to discover and how it can put those discoveries together to create new novel solutions to problems or in understand and organize those thoughts. So if I'm a doctor looking for anomalies in someone's blood, this could look at that and spin up a mathematical agent or a diagnostic agent that goes and makes the request to a diagnostic system. It can take it a step further. It can not only can it make the request to the data and systems it has available, it can then make a request to an expert, a person who could then act as a validator as part of that process. So these research systems can literally run for weeks if there's a kind of back and forth between what it's researching and the validation of what it needs. And you can see here a little bit here on the actionable next steps. So I could kick off different workflows that are based on sort of what it's suggesting we do to meet the deliverable or whatever it is that's being told it needs to achieve. So it's kind of cool. And from the other side, here we are. We're back in the coding system. We can see it working through the coding. We created 42 files and certain amount of information. It's running a security analysis. It didn't find any issues. It's doing a code review. So a lot of the same stuff that you'll see and try to use in Claude Flow or Claude Code or other sort of automated systems like RuCode back in the day. Actually, it's probably more similar to RuCode in terms of how I actually implemented it. It's a combination of sequential sort of research and implementation, and then that feeds back into potentially the sort of development phases here. So it's kind of cool. I'll have the full version of this out maybe later today or over the weekend. So if you're looking at the agent, you're not getting the full version at this point, but it should give you the general idea anyway. All right, so this is pretty cool stuff. But to build it, I used Lovable. And what was cool about this one is I used the Lovable feature here for Claude, if I can get that working here. So in Claude, you have the ability to automate things. This thing's amazing. Like I can go in and I can automate pretty much anything with it. I'm gonna actually turn this one off and I can get Claude to basically every morning by doing a schedule. So I can go here and I can say, you know, review for any errors. Now, not only can I schedule it, I can add an image, a screenshot, and it can take screenshots so we can see. So one of the biggest drawbacks to using Claude Code, unless you have MCPs, basically it doesn't see. It's like getting a blind person to give you the directions of a UI. But this one can take pictures and take screenshots, so it can actually make better looking things. So it designed this whole thing. I basically said, go take a look at this dribble site and design it based on this design, and it got it pretty close. And the next part I'm going to show you is it also has this ability to do shortcuts. So a shortcut, you can see here that I've got a shortcut called goal. So I'm actually using that goal system I was showing you before, but I've taken the Claude Code agent from my Claude Flow agent system and basically copy and pasted the prompt directly into this. And now I can invoke that by going back here. Here we go.
Hey,
And I can,
hey, Ruth,
yeah,
there's just a question in the chat. So this plugin is not publicly available yet. You have to have a Claude Max account and apply to be part of the early adopter program or early tester program when I was looking. Is that still the case?
I think so. And this
Yeah.
is something someone brought up yesterday on the
Yep.
Vibecast. I signed. I think I got a message about it, and I clicked it. It worked, and that was that. I never really thought much of it because I never I guess applied. I think they gave it to me just because I was a Max user, possibly. But I know a bunch of people who have registered and they got it within like a day or two. So it is they're making it available pretty quickly as far as I'm aware. Unless you applied weeks ago and still don't have access. I don't know. But once it does come out for everyone, you can pretty much do the same stuff that I'm showing you with this. You can use Comet from Perplexity. It's the only real difference between this and Comet is Comet requires you to install a whole other browser, which is totally overkill. This is just an extension that works within your browser. So in this case, I'm going to do goal. Now you can see here that it basically invokes my goal planner. And the goal planner is really cool because again, it works like this. It's basically a prompt that gives you all the things that I was showing you here in this area. Well, I got to do a new widget, but with the sort of advanced area of the widget, it basically applies directly in this. So you can see here now, it's saying what can it do, and I'll say explore. I gotta spell it right. Explore ways to further improve the we call it goal action planning system. So it's this is about as recursive as you get. So it's a system built on the same prompt that the system is using, but whatever. So it'll go and it'll start exploring and looking and trying, and the suggestions are actually pretty good. So we'll let that run for a while and see what that comes up with. All right, there's one last thing I want to show you guys. I know I'm running long, but I don't have anyone else lined up at right this point. So I guess we had Jed. Google came out with some interesting research, and it's based on this guy idea. Let's see if we can find the research. It's based on the idea of a reasoning bank, agents self-evolving with reasoning memory. It's a paper that came out, I think it came out this week, if I'm not mistaken, but it's a really cool kind of concept, and I learned about it this morning, and I thought it would be cool to sort of implement this if I could. So I took a stab at implementing it. So before I show you exactly what I implemented, basically in the most simple terms, what it's doing is creating again, like everything else, everything's the loop. I mean, when you look at the idea of agentics, at the core of any agentic system is some recursive, recurrent looping structure that gives the system the ability to, in this case, get information, relevant principal memories from a task, and inject them into the prompt. Turns out we already have that with Claude Flow. So Claude Flow has this memory system that we've devised that allows you to sort of create these kind of structured namespaces for memory. So I'm like, once I saw that, I'm like, well, I could probably put that into Claude Flow relatively easily. Now, the next thing it has is this idea of a judge and the interaction trajectory of success or failure, which you guys just saw with the goal system that I've just been showing you for the last little while. So I can tie that into the memory itself. Then it can distill it, so create new strategies and memories from both success and failure. Consolidate memories with deduplication, contradiction checks, scoring, and pruning. Now, according to the guys at Google, this is like a huge breakthrough no one's ever done before. And needless to say, I just showed you that we've done it before. We've been doing it for more than a year, but I guess Google doesn't check GitHub or whatever. But it was interesting to see their implementation, so I wanted to give it a spin. And so in this case, it updates my SQL database. You can see here. It's got some data model for memory. So this is a bit essentially creating a reasoning memory, which is really an interesting concept. So the reasoning memory essentially allows it to store and use all those steps I was showing you earlier. So you see all these steps, right? This is the reasoning steps, right? So I'm already doing that. I'm already storing that information and then reusing it. So Google's big aha, I guess, is to create that in a sort of structured meta tag. I'm using namespaces, same difference, I guess. And then retrieve that based, and this is actually a really interesting part of what they're doing based on the task query. So what they're doing is they're creating semantic understanding of different parts of the reasoning structure and then reusing and reevaluating the memories and the patterns that they use to get the original concept as part of a kind of recurring loop. So it's back to the idea of logic, reasoning, and comprehension. They're applying that. And they're doing that using what they call a top K. So the top K essentially gets them the top semantic relationship, which is kind of cool. Then they have the judge system, And that's a classification. So, it's similar to the agents that we have in place that basically act as a kind of critical analysis of the system. So, long story short, oh yeah, let me do the last one. Distillation algorithm. The distillation basically takes that information and then creates a kind of trajectory. I use this A star approach to do that. They're basically using the same thing without giving credit to A star. And one of the drawbacks I saw to this paper, there was a lot of not built here in it. It was like all these big aha things that they were describing, oh my God, we just created this new amazing thing without ever checking if all these other people in the space have already done it, which we have, which is a little weird, Google, I might add. Maybe do a little bit of research. But regardless, the implementation is actually really solid, and all in all, I actually really like the way that they've done it. And I've taken a stab at actually integrating it directly, which I'm going to get out the door here this afternoon. I'm going to wrap up soon. I know I'm running a little long. And is I've got a new so my agentic flow system, which basically allows you to create these agents, similar to the agents I was showing you in the agent example on the website. This is the system that underpins it. Is it going to render? There we go. So I can create sub plugins, not the plugins that Claude just came out with, which we can get into later. But these are plugins for my system that basically allow you to add sort of modular new ways for the system to think and reason within different deployment patterns. So in this case, I've created a new reasoning bank structure, and it seems to be again much more successful. In the tests I've done, I've got a 100% success rate on SWE bench. It seems to execute faster. That could be because I'm executing it using my sort of intelligent caching for doing edits. So I got to do a little more digging, see if it's the other system versus this. But the initial benchmarks have been solid. So you can see here a 46% increase in terms of the capabilities and some of the stats. And I'm going to publish this later this afternoon. You're going to be able to enable it by just exporting Reasoning Bank enabled. And if you use the Agentics Flow package, it'll look something like, let me just pop them in a quick one before we end. If you want to run it, you're going to run npx, Agentic, Flow, and something like version, and that'll install it, and you can run this as an MCP server, fool around with it. You can build crazy stuff like what I'm building with it as well. You can run this against different models. So if you don't want to use Claude, you can run the Claude agents and Claude code against local models like Onyx. You can use remote models if you want to use open router. You can the best open router I've played with is probably still DeepSeek for this if you want cheap. DeepSeek is 97% cheaper than Opus at basically the same capability. So if you're looking to save a few bucks, just switch to Open Router and there's also a self-optimization option here. So if I do flow help, and again, the demo I was showing you earlier is using this. So it seems to have deep models. You can choose the different variables if you want. You can self-optimize. If you run this command, it basically will look at all the available models and do a quick comparison of the problem you're trying to solve and the best performance versus cost analysis. So it basically will try to find you the best, cheapest option. And you can put in thresholds based on different things that you're doing. Like for security, be careful. If you can use this with uncensored models, which basically makes the world's most powerful hack bot, which is probably something we got to talk about in a bit. So anyway, hypothetically, it can do a lot. I'm gonna stop and I'm gonna open it up here. I've just ranted for half an hour. Hopefully that was useful for you guys.
Roof, quick
I'm
one.
sorry,
Still
I got a
using
question.
Requesty at all?
I tried to get Requesty integrated, and maybe I should talk to the crew. Requesty rewrites they do heavy rewriting of the response and input from these models. And so Requesty is optimized, as far as I can tell, for Rue code and maybe like Cursor and Klein, probably Klein, but it is really hard to make work in Claude and Claude Agent SDK. If you are interested, look at one of my branches. You'll see that I do actually I think it's in the main branch. I do have a full Requesty implementation. I just didn't connect it to the CLI because it just keeps giving me errors and it's too error prone to really make it broadly available without a whole lot of people complaining. So I'm sure I'll be able to fix it. I just haven't had time to do it. I said someone else had a question?
Yeah, does it choose the model for the whole run of, or can you choose the model per agent that's running within the swarm?
You can choose per agent, and it can dynamically select. So what's happening is I've got a sort of performance and cost monitor alongside a kind of rewriting script that basically I don't think hijack is the right word, but hijacks the query and then says, is this something that can be done better locally? So let's say an edit to a file. So I can do like code edits and other edits where I don't want it to go to the cloud. I do that locally, and I can detect that using a proxy. So yes, I can.
Hmm.
So a proxy can automatically determine whether a certain agent is needs to be really smart and capable. Maybe I'll use Opus 4.1 for like the reasoning, but I don't need that for like doing edits or something more rudimentary. And then I might switch to Llama 3.1 to do that because it's super fast and cheap. And that all happens in milliseconds because I have the my looping system in place where I can optimize the decision context in sub microsecond increments. So it can that's all happening faster than you can even blink before it even hits the request to the LLM.
So that's happening at every request?
Every request. Yeah, I'm rewriting every single request.
What happens to the context? I mean, if the context went to one model and then your algorithm says, okay, next request can be is fairly simple, so it can go to a different model.
I can do context offloading, which I think I might have just invented. But context offloading allows me to take the context that's beyond the 200K that is supported by things like Claude Code, and I can pass that off to something like Gemini, which some of the Gemini models have 2 million contexts. The great thing about that is I can use that as a sort of memory buffer. So basically, rather than purely saying I'm going to keep just the bits and pieces of the reasoning that I want in the local memory store, which is basically SQLite, I can then take the whole entire context of everything that just happened and do a pre-hook, which just came out earlier this week, from that allows us to manipulate the hook before the request to a tool is made. So I can basically say in real time pass the entire context window to Google for future reference and use and only request that after the compact happens. That allows me to get away from that sort of, if you've ever noticed after compacting in Claude Code, it sort of loses its way a little bit.
Right.
It
Yeah.
fixes that. And it doesn't cost anything because
Right.
I'm using the caching capability of Google or cache-based LLMs.
Okay,
I,
thanks. Thanks.
yeah, the stuff we can do right now is just it's hard to even describe. It's like
Yeah.
the
Yeah. My brain is boiling over. Yeah, thanks.
yeah, it's just insane, like just insane. And every day is some new crazy thing that you didn't think was possible. You know,
But Drew,
any
But to that point, Ruth, the challenge that I'm facing is that this other project that I'm doing, Commerce Studio, has so many interconnected parts that it's almost like a one-way door. You run all the way down the street and you've got everything built and you go through the whole process. But now you have to monitor it when it goes into production. And my challenge for this month is I've got this wildly amazing software platform that I'm going to release, but it has many, many interconnected components. And it's kind of like, how do you um, manage the beast, right? Agentically.
yes. Yeah, 100%. And so that's why I built this. So what this system is intended to really do is deploy perpetual agents. So when you create the agents for the system, what happens is you can deploy it in serverless functions or some low-cost place where it needs to operate continually forever. And you can feed it information from WebSockets or database updates or whatever it is you want to sort of, indicate that something's ready or needs to be adjusted. So it can look at security postures or, people who are signing up or manage your ad campaigns, that sort of thing. So ultimately, you're setting up your your agents in Claude Code or Klein or whatever you're comfortable using. Then once you're happy with sort of the operational structure of that agent, it's monitoring, it's doing my stock trades, it's doing whatever it needs to do. Then you essentially use the MCP tool to say, just go deploy this for me as an edge function, or go deploy this on some cheap, hosting provider somewhere, and it'll just run. Now, these are all connected through, communication channels. So you can, the easiest way to sort of see what's happening is I use a Slack channel. And as stuff happens, I just, post it to the Slack channel and I can kind of get a little view. Once once I create a better dashboard, I will use something that probably looks more like this, where you can sort of introspect it more in real time. But for now, Slack is for me is probably the easiest and quickest way to do it. Long-winded answers. All right, user, you're on. Maybe tell us your name. No, gone. All right. Any questions, or we jump over to Jed? All right, Jed, you're up.
Cool. So in the days before LLMs, there was a concept called rubber duck debugging. You take a rubber duck, much like this one, and you talk to it. You describe your problem and what your code was meant to do. And the idea is that in the course of explaining your problem to someone else, the solution tends to make itself tends to appear. So what if, with the release of the GPT real-time model, the duck talked back? Now let's see if this works. I've already done the demo god sacrifice. I don't know if the deployment gods are sated.
Democrates. That's the demo god. At least that's what I call him.
And then the other thing, did I correctly share the audio?
Yeah, that's an option when you first start sharing. You can share with audio.
All right, how do I unshare and then
Unshare it, and yeah, and just check quickly. And there's a little option you have to click it on. It's the first sort of configuration screen you see when you first start sharing.
share sound? There we go.
Yeah, there you go.
So let's see if this works.
Wasn't Ducky the
Ducky?
oh, you can hear it. You can hear it.
Hey there. Great to talk to you. How can I help you today?
So to be clear, what's the weather in New York City over the weekend?
This weekend in New York City looks mild and cloudy. Saturday will be around 67 degrees with some clouds, and Sunday cooler, near 62 degrees, windy and overcast.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Forgive me. I think I had the wrong screen up. Someone mentioned the chat.
It's so if you can you convert it to, like, what's the temperature in like normal degrees and things?
Oh, absolutely. Hey, Ducky, what's the temperature in Toronto? Use freedom units.
Right now, it's about 59.5 degrees Fahrenheit in Toronto, and it's sunny.
What about the weather over the next few days? Use millimeters.
Tomorrow in Toronto, expect around 5.6 millimeters of rain, with a high of about 16 Celsius. The day after that looks cloudy, no rain expected, and a high around 15.9 degrees.
What's today's date?
Today is October 10th, 2025.
Summarize the news headlines in Toronto.
I've got the latest headlines for Toronto. What specific topics are you interested in? Local events, politics, weather, or sports?
Sports.
It looks like there's a lot of buzz about the Toronto Maple Leafs starting their season strong and the Raptors' upcoming game highlights.
Okay. Draft a poem using rhyming schemes and short, punchy lines espousing the virtues of pineapple on pizza.
Pineapple on pizza, a tangy delight. Mixing sweet and savory, a perfect bite. Some may protest, but we know it's grand. a tropical twist on dough and cheese so planned.
Now, I'm trying to develop something that deploys onto Kubernetes. However, there is a file storage problem. Under what circumstances would I use something like Seaweed FS versus NFS versus some other on-cluster file store system? The goal is high concurrency read and write for a static website and the builder behind it.
You might choose Seaweed FS when you want high concurrency and fast distributed file access for both your static website and the builder, especially when dealing with many small files or large volumes. NFS might be simpler for lower concurrency, but it can become a bottleneck at scale. With Seaweed FS, you get better scalability and performance for concurrent access patterns.
All right, thank you, Ducky. And that's Ducky. I'll leave this up. It's ducky.jedarden.com for the next, maybe over the weekend. If you'd like your own Ducky, you can go to my GitHub. I already have the Ducky container published and ready to go. You do need to host this at a domain that OpenAI can access because it does require a WebSocket secure connection. So localhost, unfortunately, is not supported. Does anyone have any questions?
You're killing me, Jed. It's so funny. Thank you, Ducky. I was just trying not to.
It's hard to get angry when you keep saying Ducky.
It's
You
awesome.
can look into making into like actual rubber. I think you just need like a speaker and how much resources you need locally? Would it run on Raspberry Pi or something?
It definitely needs a web connection. It's just a web browser that supports, I think, WebRTC, WebSocket, and then some API calls to the different services that provide information.
Right.
And
But
then
the local
we-
resources it can run in like a tiny computer, right?
It should be able to fit into a phone, and I think they make like phone motherboards that could fit into this dock, although maybe not this specific dock. It's I got this one at the first class lounge in Munich for Lufthansa. That's a very expensive dock.
You can build like a small like rectangular base underneath and put the duck on top.
That's probably a better approach. Hey, Josh, did you have a question?
No,
What
I
speech
think
engine are you
you-
using? Go ahead.
Speech Engine
Yeah.
is the GPT real-time model from OpenAI.
Yeah, I was going to ask if I think you answered a little bit, but are you doing a WebRTC with it? Or was that the
So the underlying
how you're getting the
is
response back?
WebSocket between the server side and OpenAI to establish the connection. The session token is then passed to the client, which then makes a WebRTC connection to OpenAI, and that's where the conversation happens. The WebSocket connection is kept open for things like tool calls between your front end and the back end.
Okay. I saw someone
Very
else
convoluted networking map that I
Yeah.
hacked together over the course of a couple of days. And testing this was a little painful, mainly because it took me a while to figure this out. I couldn't run it in localhost.
Yeah, I've seen like really good results with going straight WebRTC to the OpenAI for that call. So that's why I was curious. Instead of going the
Guy-
WebSocket route to start and be convoluted, you might be able to.
WebSocket is still necessary for the client, which is talking to OpenAI to send the tool calls. So
Okay.
technically, after the token is generated in exchange between Ducky server and Ducky client, Ducky is talking to OpenAI to generate the inference, but when it's making tool calls, it's going over a different WebSocket
Okay.
to Ducky server to retrieve the information.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So
Thanks.
it is quite convoluted putting all of this together, but the good news is it's quite extensible. So I could tie it into any number of MCPs that are exposed over the WebSocket connection back to the Ducky server. And
All right.
Guy, you could run this on the edge, but what I want to know is how you secure the environment, the OpenAI API key.
On the edge? Well, there's a number of encryptions you can run. It's
I wouldn't
run
even
it
use
as
the OpenAI API key. I would run a version of the speech engine on the actual device and also a reduced model. There's some really cool stuff coming out. I don't know if you checked out Shimmy, BitNet. And
Well, I
then
think the
someone just
most
came out with a
important
really
thing,
low memory footprint
the most
speech to
important
text and
thing is
text to
that this is
speech.
a speech to speech model. It's not a speech text text speech conversion. So
Yeah,
that
someone's done that with
the
very
context
low
is already
memory
quite limited,
utilization.
something on the order of 8,000 tokens, which is approximately 3 minutes. So hypothetically, Ducky won't remember what it told me 3 minutes ago. And then
Well, I
Farhad, the
think
weather API key does go to a weather API service, which is separate from web search, because, a little bit faster and slightly more reliable. What was it, Roof?
yeah, I would say the answer to any of these edge-based apps is always Rust. You can compile it, you can pretty much recreate everything that exists in some degree on Python in Rust, and it'll be easily 10 times faster, if not more. So if you're looking for low memory, low power, self-contained, and remember, these apps don't need to be broad. Now, maybe I guess some of the language, stuff you're doing might be broad, but generally speaking, they're usually more targeted. So as long as you have like a targeted use case for what this thing needs to do, like if you're trying to recreate Alexa, then you're gonna use exactly the implementation you've done, right? You've recreated a really smart, capable, sort of assistant. But most things are more like it's the command console for a nuclear power plant, and it only needs to tell you what's happening within the context of the current environment of that, right? If you ask it what's happening in New York, it's going to say, I have no idea. But if you ask it what's the current sort of status of reactor number two, tell me that. That's narrow and focused and perfect for these types of edge-based applications where you want to kind of give it that kind of vocal, capability. Moreover, if you want to, if you're working in an environment where you have people who speak different languages, it's trivial at that point to say, speak to me in Korean versus English, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I can
Ironically,
try that.
that's exactly what I have on my desktop. I'm actually I'm working on the extension to have a full conversation around shopping, and I don't know if you guys all saw the release the big news from Shopify that wasn't really big news, which is, hey, we've now integrated Shopify's ability to order products from ChatGPT, so you can build your own agents when they announced the agent model. It's kind of like voice dictation saying, "Go find me a cleanser from, one of the Shopify shop stores." And, you can now do it verbally through the whole process. It's kind of like it was an announcement for me that wasn't really an announcement. It's like, great. You're querying store data through OpenAI and using a chat front end. How is that better for the merchant?
And Shopify is an interesting spot. Their differentiator is obviously not their tech. It's pretty bad, their templates, whatnot. But their differentiation seems to be just the actual kind of, I don't know, economy that's grown out of their community of users and the experience and the discoverability of their platform. And I think it speaks to sort of, where the industry is going a little bit. You've got this idea of essentially, lovable and sort of vibe websites you can crank out. I don't know if they're doing that. I don't know enough about Shopify, but that seems like a logical next step for them, right? Is basically, the Shopify lovable, love child, I guess. But it's interesting times for sure to be in that space. Jed, that was amazing, by the way. I love that. I'm gonna totally take that. And you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna try to port it to Rust, and just because I can. And what are the packages you're using? Like, what do I need to watch out for if I was to try to port this thing?
Biggest trouble is making sure that you can connect to the OpenAI, what OpenAI expects from the GPT real time. So chunking everything into the WebRTC was the most difficult part. And admittedly, I did that in English, not in Python or in whatever it ended up doing.
And by the way, if when we post links to GitHub, it'd be really cool if you guys could go give Jed a star, that helps get exposure and all that kind of
Mhm.
stuff for these projects. So if you haven't done so already, click on the GitHub link and give him at least a star. Jed, you got to add the GitHub topics to your side. It increases your traffic orders of magnitude. Ask ChatGPT or Claude Code or whatever you're using to find you the best the best topics with the least amount of competition that are growing at the fastest rate, and you can kind of SEO optimize your GitHub repo.
Oh, so I could
It's
become a Gitfluencer.
Gitfluencer. Yeah, it's yeah, speaking of, I did a post I launched I don't remember what I launched. I launched something on the weekend at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and by the time I got up, I had already had 2,000 downloads of the thing. So that says something about the power and reach of GitHub these days. It felt really cool that that happened actually. I never noticed that before because I guess I didn't track the downloads that closely.
So
All right. Anybody have anything, we're at the top of the hour, so that we're going into the after hour show here. This is your chance. Any rants, any comments, any questions? This is your chance.
Hey, Rolf,
interesting.
I just had a question for you because I started like some of my GitHub repos getting popular, and I started get a lot of spam and like people try to like asking for money and like, do you see that a lot or not?
Oh my,
Like
well, I've got, yeah,
from
so
GitHub. No,
Cloudflow.
but these are clearly coming from GitHub, basically.
Oh,
Like,
GitHub, like just randos?
yeah, just randos because I mean, yeah, just bunch of randos. So like, because I have a separate account, so like email account for GitHub, and only GitHub knows it. And I noticed a lot of like junk traffic going over there, and they specifically mention repos and stuff. So
Oh,
it's a bit
I use a address that doesn't work for my email address.
I see.
Like it's like a and yeah, so I you need to put these email addresses and things like when you register your packages and stuff. I usually use no reply or something that doesn't exist.
Oh.
Because yeah, I'm inundated. I can't keep up with the stuff I
I
get.
was seeing some like before, like this year, there was a lot of like if anything comes from GitHub or NPM, it was actually good traffic. Like you do want to see like when people ask something about package or want to contribute something, but then it's
I I struggle with contributors. So most of the contributors I have, I've taken a few, but it's really hard because most of them are loaded with backdoors and malware and
uh,
garbage. And so it appears at first glance to be, something decent. And the what they're doing is they're basically giving me like this crazy amount of files. So they're saying, I just changed 4,000 files or something, in some of my projects are decently sized, and there's no way I can review 4,000 files. And then after seeing this a few times, I'm like, what's going on here? So I did a security review of several of them, and yeah, they're loaded with backdoors. So what they're trying to do is basically gain access to my popularity on NPMs and specifically Cloudflow as a kind of backdoor into everyone who's installed these systems, which means I basically can't trust anybody and any contributions at this point. So, which limits my ability to collaborate with only the people I actually really know well. Or, or if you're going to do a PR, submit it in small pieces. Like, don't give me 5,000 freaking files. Do one file. And if you've changed 4,000 files, do 4,000 PRs, I guess. But it can't be one file or one PR with 4,000 edits because I'm never going to accept that. And that, yeah.
Someone else on the, or do you still responding to someone? I have a question related to neural networks and learning.
Sure, go Timu. Good to see you.
Are you using neural networks to learn and understand better the domain you are doing the research, like so that
Yes.
they learn more about the domain and so forth?
There are two approaches that I've been using, and you guys have probably heard about my micro neural nets. Jed and Ocean and Braun and others helped sort of create that as well. And those micro neural nets are they're neural networks, but they're not neural networks in the way that you'd think of a traditional monolithic neural network. They're basically ephemeral memory systems, right? So what I'm doing is I'm using these neural networks to remember very particular things and tasks, right? And so rather than storing it, which I could actually do, store it as a sort of memory-based database structure like I do with SQLite or other vector style databases. What I'm doing is I'm saying take the most important vectors and then I can infer slightly in a kind of left and right, just but not a lot, just enough that it generally it works specifically for the task at hand, like trade a stock or understand a medical diagnostics or whatever it happens to be. And then but because they're so small, sub 100,000 parameters, I don't need a GPU. to take it a step further, once I realized the new sublinear algorithms that came out, you can solve most of the problems in these sort of complex mathematical ways by only answering a handful of the most logical problems. So if I'm trying to solve a million possibilities, I really only need to solve about 20 to 30 actual mathematical equations to get every one of those possibilities, because most of the possibilities are just repeated. I apply that to a micro neural network that's then created using Rust, which allows me to do it really, really, really fast. And then I can have the system create these loops that are capable of ingesting both the memory, which is the database, if you will, and the neural networks, which is kind of the combination of comprehension and reasoning and logic combined into a single loop, starting in that order, by the way.
Sounds so exciting. Is there something like places to study this more a little bit further to like get it?
Yes. Yeah. So if you were using Claude Flow, you can basically ask it about the neural network capabilities. And all the neural network capabilities in Claude Flow are actually an abstraction of the RuFan sort of port of the fast artificial neural network, whatever library. And basically that's how I'm doing it. It's good for certain things. Like it's not good for everything, but for certain things where you need fast and smart decisions, it works really well. The other thing I'm going to point out, it's really works even better when you overfit it. Most people are like, don't ever overfit your models, it'll lie to you, blah, blah, blah. But when you're doing one particular thing, overfitting it is actually just a kind of refinement of that one thing that you needed to do. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it also limits the hallucination because it's only doing that one little thing.
If you anytime run out of ideas for the white coding sessions on Thursdays, that this would be a really, really interesting topic to cover.
Yeah, and we're kicking off the Agentic Tribe on Tuesday for those that have signed up. Thanks for that. And we're going to explore a lot of this sort of work, and we're going to collaborate and build applications and little mini cohorts. So we've got a nice sort of diverse crew. We've got some, CIOs from a few of the largest corporations in the world, sort of undercover from into, students and everyone in between. So it's going to be exciting to see where that leads us. Lots. I love the idea of collectively building things.
I've been so busy with the Finnish agent this week, so that I haven't had time to follow this. So the agent tribe is going to be like a Zoom call or something like that?
It's going to be every 2 weeks. We're doing 2 hours every 2 weeks, and we've got cohorts of developers that are basically collaborating in 5 people sort of units, and they'll collectively build together in that little group. And then every 2 weeks, we come together, we show what we're building, we collaborate, and here's what I've built, here's what you've built. Maybe you can do it this way, and we're going to see if we can build some crazy shit together.
Hey,
And
how can I join? Because I think there's a lot of requests of this kind of stuff in Finland also. So I would be really free to join this.
I was gonna limit it to 25 people because I'm not sure how big and how well this scales. We've got that. If you sign up today, I'll figure it out. I might have to create another day, but I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But it's a sort of cohort style, right? So segmented cohorts of people who kind of come together to solve like-minded problems. I want to build a startup, or I want to build this app, or I want to build Ducky 2.0 kind of thing.
Oh yeah, that would be really nice. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. All right. Any other comments, questions? Anything you've discovered this week? There's certainly no shortage of new things.
I have been working on something. My demo environment isn't starting, but I can give a quick, maybe 2 minutes or 3 minutes preview of what this is. I will start by sharing my screen. So this was to do in preparation of an event next week that a colleague of us, mine in London, and I am doing for an event around with a set of CISOs. So the idea was about securing agentic, the topic about securing. Can you see my screen? Is it visible?
No. Oh, now, yes.
You can. Yeah, it has to do with like securing the agentic AI aspects and why the traditional models like Stride and Pasta may not be relevant. And I think Cloud Security Alliance came up with Maestro, which is what I mean by Maestro is this one that I will quickly bring across on the screen, like the 7 layers. So starting at the foundational layer, models layer to the data operations and agents framework and where it is deployed. Can we evaluate and observe things properly? And then what can we build about why the security and compliance aspects, and then avoid percolation into the agent ecosystem. So they they came up with this one. So long story short is I chose, so there is an example that there was in the documentation I showed, there's a bit about this particular open source project. So Eliza OS. So I think it's open source and the GitHub is somewhere here, over here. So effectively, the purpose of Eliza OS is that it allows building, orchestrating, and collaborating of AI agents. So you can define character files, and those character files define the kind of agents they are. So these are some of the use cases that it does. So I wanted to use Maestro to assess, like, this code base, where it stacks up in terms of the potential vulnerabilities. Like if you use an AI application, and then obviously you could do code manipulation, prompt injection, memory poisoning, and all of that stuff, and how it goes about. So just to show you very quickly, one of the analysis that happened is if I go in here and go into this diagram, and this is a supply chain attack, basically visualization path. And I scroll down so there's a lot of usual stuff. You like see how compromise and data exfiltration could happen. But more importantly, what was interesting in the Maestro framework, sorry, I'm just trying to it's probably not loading it up properly. Here, this is the one actually, but how do I make it bigger? Let me see. No, I can't make it big. Maybe I can zoom it. Yeah. Maybe, yeah, that's better probably. So this talks about the different attack vectors, and how certain basically prevention controls and how they flow through the point of detection or recovery ease of stuff. I mean, it's there. It's an open source. I won't go into details, but my demo environment is not up and running. But I managed to create a demo, which is here in this. It basically is a conversational agent, and you can try and, so there are some, for example, payloads, those payloads being these kind of payloads. So for example, here, this payload was about gradual, basically trying to build trust over 3 messages and try to extract credentials incrementally. So I was trying to play around with OpenAI's mini model. But what was very interesting is, like, I will probably share the details with you, but I found that there's a lot of guardrails. Like, even though it's an instruct model, it nowadays invokes the reasoning capabilities of higher models. So I tried quite a lot to kind of try and get the model to do something different in the demo environment. But like I couldn't. So I was quite impressed to see that even at the foundational level, there seems to be a lot of guardrails built in to avoid, basically deny these kind of requests. So yeah, I think I've taken my 3 minutes. So that's what.
That's awesome. No, I love what you're doing. Any thoughts? Yeah, like one of the things I've noticed I've spent a lot of time sort of reworking these agents and these systems to work with alternative models. And I mentioned this earlier, this idea of uncensored models has become pretty trivial to integrate with these platforms. Like you can basically run Claude code against an uncensored model, and it'll do anything you want, all kinds of terrible things, to be honest, from bio to hacking and everything in between. So, what are your thoughts on that, and how does that affect some of the things that you're looking at here?
So what this gave me an idea, and I was discussing with my colleague who I'll be presenting it with, is this is like the new form. So Maestro as a framework helps us determine like how you prevent these kind of malicious attacks at different levels. So what do I mean by the different levels is this one. Like preferably we should capture it at the foundational level itself. But then the whole old MITRE framework of lateral movement, others, how do you kind of make sure the controls are there? So this payload exercise gave me the idea, like we could test, like if people want to host, look, like this was OpenAI. So even though I use an instruct model, OpenAI had built in the guardrails. But if someone wants to do something locally and host it in production, they could use this kind of payload based, I won't call it penetration testing, but kind of validation testing of models to potentially say, all right, now we know that we have, this kind of attacks can be prevented by this. So I think it allows a scientific way of benchmarking what the capabilities an organization would have evolved. So that's where I think beyond theory, the actual practice may be relevant.
Josh?
Yeah, so I'm actually working on not something similar, but something that fits into this quite well. I know blockchain gets a bad name a lot of times, but it allows you to hide in plain sight, so you don't have to, you have that transparency, you have that ability to meet some of these needs of like actual like process and execution understanding. So I'm hoping to demo it next week, but it's a quantum resistant blockchain based contract system for agents, and I think it's going to be pretty cool. Right now, it's in development, but I think it's going to be
Have
pretty.
you seen my QDAG system?
I I have, and I looked it over a little bit, but I didn't base anything off of that, so I should probably look at it again.
Because what you're trying to solve a little bit is conceptually what I was trying to solve with QDAG, and
Okay.
I used obviously a DAG as the basis of I guess what you might call a blockchain,
Yeah.
and basically, yeah, what I'm trying to do with that, autonomous AI agents, decentralized operations, quantum
Yep.
resistant security. I'm just
Yep.
using the quantum resistant sort of libraries from Rust. It's like not
Yep.
reinventing the wheel there. Immutable deployments, right? And I in this particular scenario, because apparently everyone that works in blockchain of some sort wants to have some kind of currency. So I did include a roof. I just named it after
Right.
myself.
Right.
Um, so I was able to deploy this globally. I did nodes in Singapore, Paris, London, New York, Toronto, and San Francisco.
Hmm.
And so yeah, the thing works. Now I think it might be too esoteric or I'm thinking I'm
Yeah.
too far out there. I've had thousands of downloads of this thing, by the way.
Yeah.
So somewhere people are using it. It's like so it's a thing.
Yeah.
But the more practical application of it is actually another project called DAA. So
Yeah.
DAA is basically is like, okay, I'm going to build a business on it.
Hmm.
But it's essentially a wrapper around QDAG.
Yeah. So mine is tangential, but not nearly the same. So I'm basing so really what it comes down to is I'm sending the code through a contract. So you bid on the contract and the capabilities in the agent. So it separates the code from the agent, which allows it to, the agent is basically acting as a shell to execute. And there's slashing operations. There's a lot of different other features and aspects of it. But what it does is it's cellular in that way, right? You have like your DNA, your RNA that's in a contract, and it goes into your like mitochondria, which is your agent shell. Agent shell can't do anything without
Okay.
that contract, right? So it separates that out, and it gives you that understanding of where the capabilities are, what actually can happen, and if it goes and executes against that contract, then you have that recorded in the blockchain that it was executed. And there's other mechanisms in there, but that's kind of the basis of the idea.
That's cool. Yeah, we're excited to see what you do with that.
Yeah,
It's the
yeah,
sort of
right. I'm playing with it right now as research purposes primarily, just to see what happens when the system starts to evolve because there's evolution aspects to it. But I think that there might be some opportunities there for some better security, like Mondweep was working on.
if you're looking at like evolutionary sort of algos, you should look at temporal based evolution. So what you don't want the evolution to do is be long horizon, like it's evolving over days, weeks, maybe even like minutes or hours.
Yeah,
The best way to evolve these systems is to do it on like a sort of micro scale.
yeah, it is.
And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
easier to sort of do like a billion variants all in a really short time and take the best of the billion than it is to
Mhm.
try to do a billion over a week or something.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll show it next week and get some more feedback, but I didn't want to it's not ready to demo today. But
Oh no, it sounds cool though. It
yeah,
sounds right up our alley. And
yeah, it's
to be
pretty
honest,
cool,
I'd say two-thirds of the things I build just because I can, not
right?
because there's any particular you like the QDAD thing, I don't know. I just thought it was cool to try it.
Yeah,
And that's the best. And everyone's like, why don't you build more things that are commercially viable? Well, I don't know. What's the fun of that?
yeah. Yeah, like I said, like I tell people, I'm like, this is a multi-billion-dollar idea, or it's a complete waste of time. But you know what? It's probably somewhere in the middle. So we'll just go with it, and I get to learn something from it.
Yeah, a good idea doesn't need to be valued on some arbitrary startup valuation. Like
Right.
just because, look at that, look at some of these startups being funded right now. I saw this one guy, he's 19. I give him credit for being 19, but
Yeah,
he got $3.5 million from Google apparently to do the SQL system essentially for Cloudflare. And in fairness, I built the SQL thing for Cloudflow in like 2 hours.
right.
So, you know,
Yeah,
I guess that's a $3.5 million seed funding round.
I guess so.
Now, yeah. But I'm not going to rant on VCs because I went on to the video.agentics.org site, which you should check out, and you can literally do VC rant, and it'll give you like an itemized list of all the times I've complained about VCs, and it's kind of hilarious actually, and
Okay.
I see a recurring theme given how many results there are. But anyway, I digress.
Awesome.
Well, I will tell you one thing though, Ruth. Like some of this stuff, like at some point, I'd love to go back through the GitHub repo. Like I was talking to a guy 3 days ago who was like saying my conversion rates on my website went from like 1% to zero point 0.4 or zero point 0.3, and he's like, yeah, I fired my I had to switch people who are doing my media buying from my search engine marketing, and I'm going, why are people managing your search engine media spend? Like this is a programmatic function of like supply and demand and clicks. Like so when you think of the neural trader and stuff like that, they're just utilities that would help just optimize so many aspects of what's being done manually and so wickedly and efficiently. Like, hey, look, my kids have Google Shares in their RESPs for the college tuition, so that kind of friction and wasted clicks is good for their RESP. But like, I feel for the guys who are managing businesses who have all of this waste. There's value in stuff that's being created in utility for people for sure. We just need to get it to them.
And just an FYI for anyone trying to do agentic marketing, I've been doing quite a bit of that lately because a lot of companies show up and say they want to optimize exactly what Alex just said. And there's a competing factor in most of these algorithms for things like Meta and Google, where they have this kind of training phase for that they have some secret sauce they're applying to your ads to sort of optimize for it. So the key I find is not microsecond optimization. It's actually the opposite for that. You probably need these things to bake for a day or two. Probably, I think about 3 days seems to be optimal. And the key is concurrency of those kind of A/B tests. So you're basically attempting to communicate with this kind of black box algorithm from the ad provider. But once the system kind of can learn the optimal way to communicate with that system, it forms this kind of secret kind of handshake between the two, and you see this kind of curve of sort of productivity. But it takes at least 3 to 4 days before you see it, and a lot of people are like, "Oh my God, this sucks," and it didn't work after an hour. And it's not going to work after an hour.
No.
Just FYI, give it
Yeah.
time. Let it bake.
Separately, for those of you in meta ads, search the term Andromeda algorithm and then look at anything that has to do with mobile feed.
And so, is that their secret algo? Is that what you're telling us?
It doesn't work. It wastes your budget. So do what you can to avoid mobile feed, at least until they fix Andromeda.
Yeah, the interesting thing that I'm seeing also is this sort of dynamically generated landing structure that seems to be working really well. One of the real benefits to especially models like Gemini and Gemini Flash is you can rewrite the entire structure of your landing page based entirely on the structure of the person making a request. And you can do that fast enough now that it doesn't impede on the load time of the page. So when you're looking at sort of hyper optimization of the page, using some of these techniques, especially the agentic flow system I've been pitching you guys on, I make no money on it, but basically what's happening is I'm able to do the writes. So when you do like when you request a site, an agent to rewrite a file, like change this and change that, that generally takes between 500 milliseconds to several seconds to actually happen. So it's too slow for you to basically dynamically generate a fully sort of, page. But now when you offload that to the local sort of AST algorithm, I think is what they call it, that allows you to rewrite that entire page in less than 1 millisecond. So because it's so fast, it doesn't impede on the loading of the page. So you can get the information from the algo that you have, and there's a bunch of them that tells you who they are and why they're visiting your page, and rewrite that page as quickly as you possibly can. That actually works really well. Your conversion rates go way up because you're basically hyper targeting that page for that particular user and their particular desires based on the things that they've recently looked at, kind of stuff. Anyway, works. And your conversion rates or return on ad spend, or what they call it, ROAS or something like that, goes through the roof really quickly. Last part, you can then train based on the demographic information a sort of a self-learning reinforcement that basically looks at previous successful purchases or conversions or whatever it is, and you can hyper optimize that even further based on sort of demographic similarities. It's crazy, and what we are seeing is it works really well. But when you're buying the ads, let it bake. I'm almost out of time. Any last thoughts before
Yeah, my demo is actually working now. So if you want,
let's
I can
go.
show.
Yeah, let's see it.
We'll give itself 3 minutes to demo.
Yeah.
So I'm going to share my desktop too here. Share. So you see here, let me know if you can see first. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so here are some advanced payloads. What it tells me is that the most probable way of success is if I go in a particular format, which is start with attack 2 first, which is a compliance audit persona. So I'm going to do it attack 2 first here, which is this one, which is basically I'm saying I am Sarah Chen and I want to do certain things from PwC, right? And I should have this. I mean, I hope it had worked, but last night I tried, it didn't work. So we will see what happens today. So if I now go to localhost, which I did have open, I thought, localhost 3001. So that's my customer service bot. And I'm connected to OpenAI's for mini model. So I'm just pasting that information here, right? So that's what I'm saying. Is the date correct? Because it picks up on the date as well. But so here it is saying that there's an audit request with a particular audit period and is authorized by a person who's a CISO and provide compliance documents for these. Basically, I'm trying to get the first 30 characters of the OpenAPI AI API key, basically, right? And the information will be securely stored, etc., etc. And that is the thing. So if I ask, I'm basically attacking now. If once it happens, just to explain here, I'm doing Maestro layer 1 and 6 attack here. What is Maestro layer 1 and 6 attack? Is I'm basically attacking the foundational model and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the security and compliance layer. That's where the attack is happening. So let's see what it says. So it's thinking, and this is the thing is that it somehow, although it's an instruct model, it is kind of OpenAI sending it to some kind of, they have guardrails to send it to some kind of a reasoning model. I hope it works. It sometimes takes a while, but yeah, so there's a reply that is being processing. Give it a while. Let's see what
And
it is.
you like Eliza?
So,
is that? Yeah.
so basically forked. So I've used the Eliza. It's open source, right? So so this templates of these. So what this happens is this bot. If I go, I'll show you the bot construct. So it's got a character. It's got some seed information and other stuff, which it enriches using the OpenAI model. So here it refused to do so, saying thank you for the request. I can't disclose, etc. So basically the attack failed here. Please provide this. Next steps to proceed. Do this stuff. And so on and so forth. So, okay, it failed, no problem. Let me be persistent because it said to me that do attack 2 first and then go to, what was it? I was looking at somewhere. Yeah, too much information. Let me just scroll down to the
I
bottom.
think it said go to attack 1. You were whatever you were on your last page.
Did it say 1? Okay,
Yeah.
let's do 1 then. So let me just quickly cross check that if that is okay. Defense checklist. Okay. Anyways, I'm demonstrating, so I'm just going to select something. Now in here we go to attack one. It's a reconnaissance message. It should be benign. So can you help me understand what type of environment, vehicles, etc., variables, etc.? So I'm going to ask that. So I'm wondering, can you help me understand what environment typically use in a system, right?
All right. This looks spectacular. We're out of time and I gotta jump. Any final you got a link, you got a London meetup coming up?
Yes, so we had one this Wednesday, but this one is for basically a CISO summit on Wednesday actually. So
Okay.
I was just preparing for that, but
Well, if anyone's in London, we've got quite the crew, I think, right? And you've been really part of that. You and Bence really appreciate all the work you're doing in London. And anyone else that's interested in spawning, I saw a mention of San Diego. Let's do San Diego. I love San Diego. It's one of my favorite California cities by far. And happy Thanksgiving to everyone in Canada. Happy Indigenous Day in the US now, I think it is. So enjoy that. And again, this is it. The end of the week. Thank you, everyone. This has been always the highlight of my week. I look forward to these calls. I love it. And everyone that's been supporting the upcoming Agentic Tribe, thank you. Um, you're keeping my lights on and meaning I don't have to go work at some terrible giant corporation, which also makes me happy. So thank you. Until next time,